Hello there, this is for my film class, Hitchcock Cinematic Universe. Today in the video I'm going to be talking about the differences between the books and the films, mostly about Vertigo. I just want to make a few brief points about Rebecca, because there were some very interesting things about Rebecca which I liked in the film that I didn't feel when I read the book. The first amazing thing about Rebecca is that it was filmed in black and white, and it didn't need to be. Alfred Hitchcock could have chosen to have filmed it in color. He chose black and white because that was the atmosphere, the cinematic style that he was going for. When you watch Rebecca, there are these scenes with some very heavy shadows, which was the influence of the German Expressionism movement. The main character of the film is called the second Mrs. De Winter. She doesn't have a first name. She is simply known as the second Mrs. De Winter. And the first Mrs. De Winter is the eponymous Rebecca. I have to just constantly refer to her as the second Mrs. Winter. So she is going to Rebecca's bedroom, and there's this scene which is a lot of columns, a lot of slanting shadows, a lot of wainscoting on the walls, which is giving these very heavy lines. And that is really German Expressionism. But one of my favorite shot in the film, somehow we didn't seem to talk about in the class, and it was a bit of a shame because I think it made one of the strongest impressions on me, because the second Mrs. De Winter, she's a bit of a light-hearted ingenue, and she marries this incredibly wealthy man, Maxim De Winter, and he takes her back to his palatial mansion, just enormous, and she's not able to function in this atmosphere. She feels very oppressed by all of the servants. She feels oppressed by her duties, and it is reflected in the enormousness of the mansion and how small she is. Like, very often she is getting lost in the mansion. She doesn't know how to find her way from one area to another. The mansion is depicted as being enormous. Like, she is always shown as being very small. And there's this one scene in particular where she goes to a door. I'll try to get an image here for you. She goes to turn the doorknob, and the doorknob is huge. It's like as big as her head, and it's on the level of her head, and it makes her look like a small child. It actually, for me, when I looked at that, I thought it looks like she is in some kind of a doll's house where the proportions aren't really correct, because she is so tiny compared to this huge door that she's trying to open. And I thought, wow, that really works perfectly. Talk about Vertigo. I really enjoyed reading this book. I really enjoyed watching the movie. But there are many, many differences. That this novel is set in Paris in 1938, 1939. The war has got started. The French are fighting the Germans. By the end of part one, we know that the German army is advancing into France. The main character of the novel leaves France because he's not eligible to be a soldier because he has some sickness. And he goes to Dakar in Africa. It's the capital city of Senegal. And he has some kind of a business which seems to make him quite a lot of money while he's down there. And he is away from France for 4 years. And he becomes a quite bad alcoholic. He returns to Paris just at the very end of the war. In the movie is set in, I believe, 1955, 1956, San Francisco. And that is quite a large difference. Now, it doesn't really change the plot of the story. We still have the essential story that there is a man. He is being hired by an old acquaintance to follow his wife because his wife is a bit, she's been behaving strangely, feels that maybe his wife thinks that she is the reincarnation of her great-grandmother, and she's been just behaving quite strangely. So the man is hired to follow his wife to see how she spends her day. That is the same in the novel and the film. Why did Alfred Hitchcock choose to set the film in San Francisco? That I am not sure. I can assume this was the period of Alfred Hitchcock's career where he was making Hollywood films in America. Rebecca was made in 1940. Vertigo was made in, I think, 1957, 58. And he was making a Hollywood film for an American audience. Alfred Hitchcock was based in Hollywood at this time. So he made an American version of this story. Okay, that's fine. Another major difference in this is that in the second half of the novel, I don't want to give too much of the plot away. The second half of the novel is the main character is really quite an alcoholic. Like, he can hardly move without first taking a drink to steady his nerves. And this is very critical in the suspense of the novel because he's fixated on this woman. The man who hired him, his wife, she died. And he thinks that he has rediscovered someone who looks a lot like her, and he begins to hallucinate with his alcohol that he's found her again. If he could just get her to wear a different style of clothing and to cut her hair a different way, if he could just make her into the woman that he believes she is, he will be happy. However, he knows that she's dead, and reading the novel, it's quite a mystery. Like, is he simply suffering from alcoholic delusions, or has somehow the woman, like the wife that he was following, who died, has she somehow been reincarnated in this new body? Like, that is quite a mysterious question. Another thing that is very, very different from the novel to the film is the creation of a character that's not in this book at all. Her name is Midge, and in the film, Jimmy Stewart plays the main character. Jimmy Stewart and this character Midge, they have a very odd relationship, that they are friends. However, it is mentioned that when they were in college together, that they were engaged for a time.
How's your love life, Midge?
It's following a train of thought.
Well,
Normal.
aren't you ever going to get married?
You know there's only one man in the world for me, Johnny-O.
You mean me? We were engaged once, though, weren't we?
3 whole weeks.
Yeah, good old college days. But you were the one that called off the engagement, you remember? I'm still available.
And we don't know why the engagement was broken off, or if it was her or if it was him. We assume it was him because he seems to be a bit, somehow Midge just doesn't really turn him on. Like, you get that impression that she is trying very hard to be very nice. You know, she's always very smiling. She's very concerned about his well-being. And he treats her rather offhand. He's not too nice to her. And he falls in love with this man's wife that he's been paid to follow. He falls in love with Madeline. Why does he fall in love with Madeline? Why does he fall in love with Madeline? Well, at one point, quite early on, she attempts to drown herself. And he jumps into the water and he saves her from drowning, and he takes her back to his apartment and he gives her some dry clothes, and he's somehow he falls in love with her through just following her. He seems to become infatuated. Once you know the secret to this novel and to the film, you can see that that is exactly what she hopes for, because she has a duplicitous, she is being manipulative. She is trying to encourage this romance. I don't want to give it away. I know it's a 50-year-old film, but it's quite a good film, and it's quite a very good novel as well. So the character of Midge is completely added to the film, and I think it works as an addition because in the novel, the man who hires him to follow his wife, it's an acquaintance of his that he went to school with when they were university students, college students, and I think they lived together in a dormitory. So they have, and now it is like 15 years later, he is married, he is not married. They're not good friends, but they are still acquaintances who know each other well. That is significant to the plot. In the novel, there's a lot more of the relationship between the two men, and in the film, there's not. There's one meeting with this man where he convinces Jimmy Stewart to follow his wife. And aside from that, he has a friendship with Midge, and he slowly becomes infatuated with Madeline. Another difference between, as I mentioned, the alcoholism is a lot stronger in this novel. It is hinted at in the film, but we don't see Jimmy Stewart ever really slobbering drunk. And in this novel, we definitely see that he is really quite a bad alcoholic. He's always sneaking off to the bar to get a quick cocktail or to get a shot of brandy. It happens a lot, which throws quite a lot of questioning into the minds of the audience. Like, is he in his right mind? Like, it seems that he's not. It seems that he has gone completely lunatic in this obsession with this dead woman. And in the film, it's not based on alcohol. It's more based on maniacal obsession, confusion in his mind. And Alfred Hitchcock plays with that with the techniques of the cinema. Like, what we never get in a novel is the you know, the very fantastic special effects, quite odd lighting. In the film Vertigo, there is a really trippy dream nightmare sequence, which really caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that at all. Especially for a film from 1958. It is really wild, and I was happy to see that, but I ran over to the computer to say, you know, because it sparked a memory that Alfred Hitchcock worked with Salvador Dali to create a very famous film sequence. I was like, okay, when was that done? So that Salvador Dali Hitchcock, that was done in 1945. Wow, quite a long, you know, a decade earlier than this red light, very garish red light and blue light and green light flashing on Jimmy Stewart's disembodied head. Really bizarre scene. Any other big differences from this? The main difference, because San Francisco really plays a very strong role in the film, that when you watch the film, it is a bit of a love story just to the city of San Francisco. And I talked to the professor about it after one of the classes, because it breaks my heart a little bit, because for a long time, San Francisco was like one of the beautiful American cities. Like, that is where people wanted to go. I remember my parents went to visit San Francisco in the early 1980s, and you know, like, because that was like a dream holiday for people. Wow, San Francisco, that's where my parents went on holiday. They just went to San Francisco for 2 weeks, you know, to get that American beautiful experience. I know today that they are having terrible problems with homelessness and drug addiction. It's quite a shame. When I saw Vertigo, I was like, wow, I would love to go to that city. It looks gorgeous, but I suppose today it's just not the same as it used to be. Ah, well, nothing is the same as it used to be, is it? Which do I prefer? I don't like to say. I'm really enjoying the Alfred Hitchcock class because I haven't seen these films for forever. In fact, I had never seen Rear Window before a few nights ago. Like, that was the first time I'd ever seen Rear Window, and I loved it. Like, there were some shots in the film that were just so meticulously perfect that I was like, God damn, that's the way movies used to be made. You know, when a real artist, like, he was creating the scenes almost with a paintbrush. Like, they are so gorgeous, these shots. Like, Rear Window is, so far, it's absolutely my favorite. Yeah. Like, Rebecca was quite nice, and Rear Window, you know, came much later in his career. It was in color. It was in, you know, this very, like, kind of eye-popping Technicolor. Like, the main character, she wears this green dress, and, you know, it's very vibrant green. A woman across the way, she's wearing pink. She wears this pink bra and pink underwear, and she's a dancer, and she's making all these, you know, really nice dancing movements. And the colors are just so shockingly vibrant. And yeah, it's just a really great story. Personally, I don't care for Jimmy Stewart. I don't like his style of acting, but oh well. So, very, very large differences between the book and the film, although the core element is there. A man is hired to follow this man's wife because she's a bit loco. He falls in love with her. She dies. I won't say how. See, that is a very important difference there. That in the book, as I said, he goes to Africa for 4 years to spend the war making money in Africa. In the movie, Jimmy Stewart goes into a sanitarium. He goes into a psychiatric hospital to recover from this trauma. You know, it's left like his mind is shattered. There's a bit of a pause, and sometime later, we don't know how long he actually spends there. I think, like, in my mind, I thought it was like 1 year. He was in the psychiatric hospital for 1 year. It's never really clear. He just one day is not in the psychiatric hospital anymore. So I didn't enjoy that as much. I thought the book did a better job with creating a reason for the man to be absent and providing a very reasonable excuse for the man to return to the place where he became obsessed with this woman. Whereas in the film does, you know, Alfred Hitchcock, what I learned from class, is that he wanted to create a first Vertigo Part 1 and Vertigo Part 2, and that the two films should come together, but they would be different. You know, Part 1 was this, he's working as a private detective, and part 2, he becomes obsessed with this other woman and he tries to transform her into this dead woman that he was in love with. And yes, so there is that big break right in the middle. It's the same in the book, but it's really up to you. If you prefer the film, sure. If you prefer the book, yeah. I think the book is excellent. I really enjoyed reading the book. So far, that's the favorite book of the semester. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that it was quite clear, the differences between the book and the film Vertigo. Try reading the book first. I think that's always wisest, to read the book first so that you can see where that should show you the germination of where the movie came from. And if, like in Rebecca, the movie stays quite close to the original material, fine. Or if, as in Vertigo, it is rather quite a different film experience from the reading experience, that's also quite fine. I love books, so I will always be the person who says, read the book first. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you got something from this video, and I hope it gave you something for my professor who's going to be watching this to give me a grade. All right, I guess I'll just say hello. My name is Grant. This is Grant Loves Books. I love Alfred Hitchcock films, and it's a bit hit or miss with the source material that he used to create these wonderful, wonderful films. But that's fine. He is an artist. He's an auteur. He is an artist as a director, and that is significant. Where he gets the stories from, okay, that is not irrelevant, but it is not as important as his films are to the history of cinema and to the history of art. Whew, there's a big pronouncement, isn't it? Because in this case, I love the book. I really did not love this book. I thought it was, I hate this style of writing. I am glad it cannot happen twice. The fever of first love. Okay, that's a little bit fancy, but it's not bad. For it is a fever and a burden, too, whatever the poets may say. See, that's getting really lofty and unnecessary. Like, that whole sentence it does nothing. They are not brave, the days when we are 21. They are full of little cowardices, little fears without foundation, and one is so easily bruised, so swiftly wounded, one falls to the first barbed word. See, like, that is really very overinflated writing. That's not good writing. That's too excessive, too melodramatic. It's too fireworks in the sky. Look at me. I hate that kind of writing. It's just too, throwing flowers everywhere. And, she goes on and on. Today, wrapped in the complacent armor of approaching middle age, the infinitesimal pricks of day by day brush one but lightly and are soon forgotten. But then, how a careless word would linger, becoming a fiery stigma, and how a look, a glance over a shoulder, branded themselves as things eternal. That's awful. That's not literature. That's somebody masturbating with a typewriter. It is unnecessary. It is grossly overinflated. I would rather something clean and hard and just moving the plot forward, not your little soliloquies made of cotton candy in the sky, which is a lot of what this book is.